and get that going and share the stream link. Excellent connection. Perfect. We love that.
What we love to see.
I'm grabbing the link, so I'll handle that. Some weird shit out there. Okay. Stream is up. Is there anything embarrassing on my taskbar? I don't think so. Because it's like if I click over here, sometimes my taskbar will pop up. Yeah. No, only cool stuff. Firefox, Visual Studio Code, Audition. Yeah, no, we're good. We're good. Only impressive things on the taskbar over here. Where'd it go? Oh, I guess I should put it in the Obroa-skai feedback channel. I'm surprised no one has said anything about our new schedule screwing everything up. Oh, God, I've titled the stream wrong. Like an idiot. Fix it. Chapters 7 through 12, yes?
Yep, that's right.
Visibility, public. The plebs get this one. Okay, saved. Cool. You ready?
Ready to rock and roll.
Okay, I'm actually not. Almost ready. Just getting... No, we're good. We're good. We're good. I am now recording locally.
I am too.
Okay, I'm going to turn myself up. I was recording music earlier and was being loud, so I had to kill some of the mic was a little hot. So now my levels are all screwed up. If only I could just stick to one hobby, you know? Okay, you ready to clap?
Ready to roll.
All right, here we go. 3, 2, 1, go. Awesome. Pop out the chat so that when no one comes to talk, I'll be able to see it.
Yep, good call.
Okay. I'll just go ahead and lead us in. I feel like we've probably wasted plenty of time, right?
Probably.
Just being starting late. Okay, here we go. Listen up, library patrons, and welcome back to Obroa-skai. I am one of your librarians, Ben, and I am joined by my fellow librarian, Cole.
Hello.
Cool. This is our second episode in a row that's been live. We've managed to pull it off both times. Now, granted, we are still streaming on the Skyhoppers YouTube channel because I don't know how to prepare. But hopefully, not hopefully, next week. Well, I won't say next week. Next time we record. I'm not going to jinx us like that. Next time we record, we will be streaming from our own YouTube channel. And I will make sure to go ahead and upload these episodes that we've done to the YouTube channel as well. So that there will be... I almost said a complete archive, but I'm not doing everything. It exists on the internet. You know, you can find it if you want it. As complete as our YouTube archive can be. You will have all of that. But anyway, I'm happy to be here. Darth Bane is
Well, he is Darth Bane now.
He is Darth Bane. Is he Darth Bane?
Or,
he's not Darth Bane.
We're halfway. I guess.
I don't want to jump in too early. There is so much more nuance to his character than I remember. Which is so interesting to me as someone who he's the progenitor of the rule of two. You know, like kind of like some consider him to be the Sith Ari. I guess that's a bit of a spoiler, I guess. But there's just a lot of self-doubt in that guy. Mm-hmm. For someone who is as powerful in the dark side as he eventually becomes. I don't feel like that's a spoiler. I think it's probably pretty clear that Darth Bane becomes one of the more powerful Sith Lords.
You know, probably wouldn't be a trilogy about it if that wasn't the case.
No, but anyway, not jumping into that yet. We are probably 45 minutes off of talking about the book. I don't know, maybe not quite that long, but you do never know. Right now I'm just stalling for time because I don't have an article ready yet. How you been, Cole? We did just record Skyhoppers yesterday, so it's not been that long since we've talked. We've actually, I don't know if Obroa-Skywalker's listeners will even notice because I don't know what day I'm going to put this show out. But for full disclosure, we're recording on Monday nights now, 8 p.m. Eastern if you want to come and watch the streams. And I might still be putting the show out on Tuesday. It might move to Wednesday. I don't know yet. It really just depends on whether or not I have time to edit it. Also, if we miss a day, if we miss a Monday, the show will be happening, ideally, if we can make it happen, will be happening on Wednesday.
Right.
We have a backup day now because Skyhoppers now records on Sunday mornings, and in the interest of not podcasting twice in one day and losing 4 hours in front of a screen talking about Star Wars, which actually sounds pretty good now that I'm saying it out loud. In the interest of not doing that, however, and kind of not neglecting other aspects of our lives, we are not doing 2 podcasts in one day. So apologies for saying, hey, we're live streaming now, and then changing the day on you. But I think, have found a good stable place now. I think we found a good stable place now, and going forward, this is going to be the way things are.
As life changes, so does podcasting.
You certainly don't do this for 6 years like I have without being at least a little bit flexible.
Yeah. We're definitely recording in the morning yesterday was definitely really weird.
Very
weird. That being like the first thing I did, basically.
Literally the first thing you did.
Woke up, ate a little bit of breakfast, and hopped on.
Oh no, this is canon. That's a bummer. This article actually seems really cool.
Is there a Legends version of that?
No. No, because it is from a canon source. But as much as I want to talk about it, I'm not going to talk about it. We have other things to talk about anyway. Eva, our co-host on Skyhoppers, has made their journey across the country to their new home in Utah, which is all well and good. However, they have not gotten a chance to watch ANDOR at all yet, which, as we're all aware, is very sad.
Yeah, they were moving the week ANDOR came out, and then, as moving does, it monopolizes your time getting settled.
It's bad enough moving in town. Like I was saying, I cannot.
That's all I've ever done is move in town, and
I can't. In town, Cole? In town? Do you have a town? You mean
within 15 minutes of where I lived previously?
Right. It sucks. We've been going back and forth with our landlord, because I really don't want to move. Rent prices. It's particularly bad in Bloomington, but I think we're gonna get to end up staying here. We've hit an agreement where I think we're both okay with. But anyway, we didn't get to talk about ANDOR. We did not get to talk in a spoiler-filled way about ANDOR this week on Skyhoppers. So I'm itching. I am itching to talk about it. Cole, this is something I saw thrown around in headlines, and it's actually something that I think I agree with.
Mm-hmm.
I'm speaking purely just in terms of like construction and pacing and cinematography. Do you think this is the best episode of Star Wars TV that there's been? Because I do. I think I do. Emotionally, it varies.
Yeah.
Because obviously Luke Skywalker's not here. But that is for the best. But emotionally, I'm never going to hit the same high that I would have if Luke Skywalker was there,
Yeah, that's tough to say. Because, off the top of my head, it's hard for me to remember, the individual episodes of Mando as clearly.
Sure.
But I do remember, in particular, I think it's episode 2 of Boba Fett. That's the one that's mostly the flashback where we get the whole montage of him going on his spirit journey.
You're right. That one is really good.
And the train heist and stuff.
Yeah.
But as far as you're saying, with construction and pacing and everything, that one might not be quite as good. It's hard to say though.
Well, and that's just
it's definitely upper echelon, no doubt.
Oh, for sure. It is undeniable that this is top 3. For sure. I also do want to greet who we've got here in chat. We've got our friends Mogo, Austin, and Fetmatic all hanging out with us
Yep.
in the chat. So welcome everybody. But I was truly blown away by this episode. To me, it raised the bar of what Star Wars TV can be. Which is not to disparage the stuff that's come before, obviously. Like, that doesn't mean Andor is my favorite show just because I think it's the best one from a more objective viewpoint, as objective as these things can be. But, just I think I mentioned this on Skyhoppers. I felt tense the whole episode, but in the way that I feel like watching Dexter or something, not in the way that I feel watching Star Wars, which has tension, but is usually more of like a pulpy tension. There's like one character in the show that has plot armor. That's it. The rest of them, they all could have died. They very easily all could have died.
Yeah, the entire little heist crew that we've built up over these last 3 episodes, every one of them except for Andor himself was potentially on the chopping block, and several of them fell to it.
Didn't make it. And just, there's so much to unpack. Who ended up being your favorite crew member?
Probably Gorn, actually.
Gorn was good.
Imperial turncoat guy.
He was good.
He's also one that I wonder. I think we'll find out next episode. I think for sure, one way or the other. I feel like he may not actually be dead, because he's one of the first ones that gets shot when the shooting breaks out. But
True.
It's also extremely quick. Like you
It
see
is.
a shot of him, but it's like extremely quick cuts away. And I feel like he's the only one that they don't linger on the body or anything afterwards.
Yeah.
Because like the other guy, Terramin, like he gets shot and you see him like, hurt and stuff for a little while, and then whenever they're getting onto the ship, Nemec I think's like, "What about Terramin?" And then they show a shot of his body laying there.
Yeah,
still.
he's gone.
So I feel like he's definitely dead. But Gorn, I'm like, he could have survived that, and we might see ISB interrogation.
I was gonna say, is it rude of me to say that I hope he didn't? That I hope he's dead for his own sake?
I hope he's dead for his own sake, but I kind of hope he's alive for the story's sake, because
Oh,
I
well,
feel
for
like
sure.
that will be one of the breadcrumbs that's tying the season together with the stuff going on with the ISB and Cyril and the stuff on Coruscant. I feel like all that stuff, there's going to be these little threads from each of these individual plot lines that are going to tie together and bring all the plot lines together and all the characters into conflict with each other in a very satisfying way.
But
yeah, for Gorn's sake, I hope he just died instantly.
Yeah.
Because it will not be good for him if he survived.
No. Our prediction was way off. I love that the Imperial Engineer was nobody. Was just a completely new person. But I think that I know that a lot of
he was a slightly like more honorable Imperial in the way, in that like he pulls his blaster and like objects to them holding the kid hostage, and also he doesn't seem like he's like the commandant guy.
Yeah,
he's the one like talking bad about the Aldani people and how they stink and stuff. And I feel like the engineer guy he didn't really reciprocate that. I don't feel like,
No. Ooh, our buddy Torch is here now too. Hello, Torch.
Oh man.
So
fight the gang.
I'm there with you. I
mean, we get very little from him, honestly.
We do, and
but I was like, this guy's not like a terrible person like some of these people.
No, definitely the Commandant was definitely like the worst Imperial.
Yeah, he's definitely like the fat and satisfied.
Yeah,
Imperial.
He was not my favorite. I do think the vibe that I got from the engineer was kind of one of those like so smart, because I think they mentioned he's a colonel. Was that his rank?
I think so.
Yeah, so it's like he's so smart.
He had the different rank badge. We had the orange or the yellow on it.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing that's the Imperial like Corps of Engineers or something.
Cole, with rank badges, your guess is as good as
I don't know much about the rank badges at all beyond, the more squares,
the
higher rank you are.
rank.
Like Grand Moff Tarkin and Thrawn have the really, really big ones. But this guy's like, it had a distinctly different color palette on it.
Yeah.
So I figure it was, a different division or something.
Well, that would make sense. I mean, because he is an engineer. I think the vibe that I got from him was not necessarily one of like honorable Imperial, but rather one of like, I am so smart that I exist in my own little world, and you know, where it's just like his logic and thought process is the only one that matters, and it's like, oh, I wouldn't take a kid hostage, but doesn't necessarily have any like moral
Very much could be so.
Yeah. But anyway, he was very kind of, you know, whatever. Not Krennic.
And, something that was pointed out to be one of my roommates here, the communications officer that was the mustached Imperial.
Yeah.
I think it was Kimsey, I think was the name.
I actually don't know his name.
Oh, well, I only noted it because I thought it was really a little bit confusing that they had the Alkinzi Air Base.
Yeah.
And then his name was like Lieutenant Kimsey or
something
It was
similar.
like almost the same name. I was like, I feel like that was a writing thing that I feel like most time you would avoid that, like having the similar sounding things just for clarity's sake.
For clarity's sake, right.
Whatever. But he was played by Nick Blood, who I know from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., the Marvel TV show.
Okay.
He was a fan favorite character in there, and I didn't recognize him at first, but one of my roommates pointed out, I'm like, oh yeah, that totally was that guy. I always liked that guy.
I liked it.
Nasty Imperial here.
I was gonna say I liked him here.
Yeah, well, his competence almost foiled the mission.
It did. It did. Well, and that's like, I don't know. These Imperials walk a fine line between, well, and it helps that, again, none of these characters have plot armor, but like they walk a fine line. Like the troops are very clearly, in some cases, like very lax, very kind of sloppy, but whenever they get kicked into high gear, it's like I didn't know who was gonna get shot. I thought Vel could have gotten shot. I thought any one of them could have gotten shot and died in that hangar. Which isn't something you can say for stormtroopers all the time. But
yeah, and I think it just helps that they're not stormtroopers. We can see their faces. You know,
yeah.
We can see them all as people more clearly because they're not, you know, just skull masks that the stormtroopers give us.
Well, and I wouldn't be, well, I definitely think that the lack of stormtroopers is intentional. I think the stormtroopers are going to show up when things really start to hit the fan.
There were actually a couple of stormtroopers in this episode, extremely briefly, far in the background. When they show the shots of the TIE fighter base, you can see some like walking around in the background.
Oh my god!
Just barely. I noticed. I was like, "Oh, hey, look, there they are." Not doing anything productive.
I will say, the Alkinzi Air Base, so cool.
Oh, dude, just seeing the TIE
fighters, TIE fighters,
with the eye going on in the background. Fantastic.
I felt like such a dork when whenever the one pilot was getting his TIE fighter and plopped down in there and we get that shot of him sitting down, I just went, TIE pilot. And I'm like, did I just do that? Like, that was stupid. But the eye itself was gorgeous. And it's one of those things, it's like, how is this not dangerous? You know, I looked at it and it was like, how does this not like cause serious problems for this planet? But it doesn't.
Well, it's one of those things, if there's anything in the atmosphere or in orbit where that passes through, it would probably get shredded. Yeah. As we see the TIE fighters, that's what happens. But it seems like it's a natural phenomenon that doesn't really have any repercussions planet side itself. Interesting.
Speaking of flying through the eye, something I don't know if you caught it. I don't know if it was intentional. I'm leaning towards it not being intentional and it just being a coincidence. When they are flying through the eye, and of course Nemec has had his accident, and Cassian is like, I don't know where to go. Tell me where to go. Nemec starts saying, climb. Climb.
Oh, I think it's intentional.
Do you?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that hurts.
Now it's like, oh no. Now whenever that's happening in Rogue One, now he's having like flashbacks.
And it's bad. I was gonna say it's bad enough because it's K2 and now it's Nemec too, who was, I didn't answer. I think it's pretty clear my favorite of this group. I loved him, and I honestly kind of wish he could have just had a Terramin death. You know, just kind of just be done, just be gone.
It's even more tragic.
It's worse.
It's like, oh, they were done with the shooting basically, and then killed by simple physics.
Yep.
Basically,
Oh, it
And
was.
he was like, we gotta go, and then Cassian punches it, and
It's gut wrenching is the word, like, no pun intended. It's
Mhm.
it's hard to watch. It was well acted. It was the shot well, and I'm just like, this is rough. I do
and
not
as soon as
like.
it happened, I was like, oh no.
Yeah.
I was like, at best, he's gonna be like paralyzed.
Exactly, and that's what I was hoping for. I'm like, okay, maybe he's not dead though. Maybe he's not dead. But honestly, to me, it's unclear if the accident killed him or if it was the stim they gave him that killed him.
Yeah,
I
it's one of those things that he might have lived like a little bit longer without the stem, but I don't know if he would have survived.
Maybe
long
not.
enough to
Maybe
get to
not.
the doctor, but the stem also might have, caused further damages. Causing his body to overexert itself and kill him too. It's one of those. They had to make the call because they wouldn't have got out of there without him.
No,
He
no,
was the
they
only one
needed-
that could work the.
They needed him. It
was a catch-22, unfortunately.
Yeah. One thing I thought was funny too was like when they're like, she knows where a doctor is, but she doesn't want to jeopardize the mission.
Mm-hmm.
I'm literally like, I'm whispering at the screen like, come on, Cassian, do it, Cassian, go to the doctor, find the doctor. And he says, where's the doctor? And I'm like, oh yes, you come through for me. You've been kind of a jerk, but you come through for me.
Then only to find out that probably the reason that Skeen wanted to go to the doctor was just to have an opportunity to make off with the credits.
Yep. And that's what's like, see, the setup, it's so artfully done, if you will. Just the fact that whenever during the firefight, the escape, Skeen, there's one point where Terramon's like, cover me, and Skeen like doesn't. He does not
fires like one shot.
He
then
fires,
then like ducks behind cover again.
Yep,
Yeah.
and he just doesn't pop out. It's clear that he's scared. And because of the way he has gotten to where he is, if you're not being suspicious of them, which, I mean, maybe some people were, since he talks about his criminal past, and I think that's pretty much the only hint that we get that maybe something's up. I certainly didn't think there was anything amiss with him, but you think, oh, he's just not a trained fighter. He's afraid to stick his head out and get shot at. But it's not that. It's not that.
He's hoping there's going to be an injury that'll let him, give him the opportunity he wants, and it does. It's not the one he was, probably angling for, but it's what happens.
Yeah, because I don't know. It did kind of seem like he cared about Nemec a little bit.
Yeah, it's hard to say. It's one of those things, Did he really care? Maybe, maybe not. But either way, he snagged the opportunity, or tried to snag the opportunity that presented itself, and got what was coming to him.
Yeah, he did. And again, just another case of thank you, Cassian, for coming through for me. Just not even hesitating.
Coming through, but then also he's like, I'm out. I'm
yeah.
taking what I was promised, and I'm gone. So
well, and
we're not really given any hint to what's coming next either, which is interesting.
Well, Star Wars Newsnet again. I mentioned this on Skyhoppers. In a headline, quoted Tony Gilroy paraphrased Tony Gilroy saying that the episode 7 is going to divert from the arc structure that we've seen, which makes me wonder. Oh, so there are 3 episodes that divert from the arc structure, and then we have another arc to end the season.
Yeah, I don't think so, because the way they talked about it, and the way that if you look, there's a breakdown of like all the writers in the series, and like the first 3 episodes have one writer, the second 3 have a writer, then episode 7 has one writer that's just that episode.
Okay.
Then there's another 3, and then the last 2 are all with like single writers.
Okay.
So there still could be an arc, and it might just be different writer and such, but at least breaking it down by the writers, it makes it seem like 7 might be kind of a standalone transitionary of some sort. Like Cassian may be out of the action for a little while, but then either willingly or unwillingly gets dragged back into it.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if episode 7 is a Mon Mothma episode, because she's been very... They were very clear that it's like, this is a story of 2 storylines that converge, and season 2 is that storyline, composed of 2 smaller ones. And we haven't.
I wonder, based on her reaction, like we don't get much of it, but there is a little bit of the news coming through on Coruscant. Like, did she know about this? Was like this something that she was okay with, or is she like maybe this is like too overt an action at this point? It's hard to say.
It's hard to say. She was
clearly thrilled. He's it worked.
It worked.
But Mon Mothma's like noticing everyone, the few senators that are there are leaving because they're like looking at the news pads, and then it's like, oh, I wonder what her reaction to all this is going to be.
That in and of itself, which I'm sure you noticed because you noted it just now, is an interesting bit of world building. The fact that there are like no senators in there.
Yeah, she's giving the speech about trying to help the Gormans, and most of the Senate is empty.
And I was just like, it hurt. It hurt in a weird way, but it's like, of course, it makes sense that it's like, okay, by the time the Senate is dissolved, there's no uprising, outside of the already, extant rebellion, because it doesn't mean anything. The Senate has not meant anything for the last 15 years or whatever, so no one cares.
It's a symbolic. It's there just to maintain the illusion of democracy. Yeah.
And that's just, there's knowing how Mon Mothma feels about the galaxy and the fate of the galaxy, and the rights of free peoples and all that. It's hard to watch her give that speech to no one.
Yeah,
I did not like it. Did not like it very much.
But again, it's another piece of mention in the Gormans.
The Gormans, I was going to point that out.
That's definitely something they're building toward. Now that there's been a second mention of it, it's like, yeah. Before it was like, oh, that could have been just a one-off reference, a tie into things, but it feels like they're going to be building to that in probably season 2.
Sure.
And see Mon Mothma break from the Senate completely and go full rebel.
The one character, Cinta, has left me kind of not confused is the wrong word, just obvious.
You see the Mogo's message in the chat here?
Yeah. How
I was going to bring this up too.
Well, go for it.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of. It wasn't something I was caught on to watching the episode necessarily, but there's been a lot of talk online that she probably executed the hostages that were there, because when we see her leaving, she's wearing an Imperial uniform that she put on while she was there, and she's also crying when she's leaving. And Vel's like, "Are you going to be able to do this?" And she's like, "Yeah, I can do it." It's like,
oh,
it doesn't look good.
No, there was a kid there.
Yeah, there was a kid there. And the thing is, and whether she did it or not, I think that they're probably dead either way, and the Empire will either spin it that that's what happened and branding it even further as terrorist action.
Yeah.
Or if they really did do it, be just reporting on it. Hey, they stole a bunch of credits and killed all these people.
Yeah.
Either way, it's going to look really, really bad for the rebellion. And I could see Mon Mothma definitely being maybe goes to Luthen's did they really do that? and him being either, no, that was never the plan, or yeah, we had to do what we had to do,
And see, that's another interesting bit about Luthen is I don't know what side of that he falls on.
Exactly.
We don't know.
Or...
Yeah, exactly. Does he lean more Mon Mothma or more Saw Gerrera? Would he say that kind of this is almost war?
It's the price of freedom. That's what we have to do. Yeah, hard to say, hard to know. And there's also a mention of her being the coldest or the hardest one of them all.
Yeah.
Earlier, so it's she might very well have. Heck, she might be a partisan.
She could. She could end up doing that. Well, because also too, if you think about it, it seemed like with her being the hardest one of them all, or whatever that specific quote is, it seemed like Vel was kind of the one that was in charge of their half of the mission for a lot of it. Yeah. And maybe that's Cinta, this is a very, very important task, and Vel couldn't do it. Or Cinta didn't want Vel to do it, because it's clear to me those two were involved. It is 100%.
Definitely.
So,
and that was from later in the trailers. There's the shot. I think it's from the very beginning of the first trailer of the Star Destroyer flying over the valley and Cinta looking up at it.
Yeah.
That hasn't happened yet. So I'm the Empire's definitely coming back to Aldhani maybe for a reprisal.
And see, that makes me wonder too. Well,
And that's what the ISB officer's asking. He's like, "Hey, I want every like planetary retaliation plan y'all have prepared to like present by midnight." It's like,
you can almost
it's gonna be bad.
you can almost see exactly how it goes. Like, maybe the plan was for Vel to come back to Aldani at some point. I would assume it probably was. Like, she's not just gonna leave Cinta, but the fact that the timing's not going to work out. The Empire, clearly, the ISB is not going to let that sit. They are moving as fast as possible. And I don't know if Vel's going to be fast enough. Not that Vel could do much anyway, because they're going to either wipe out or enslave the entire population. You know, like...
it's going to be rough, whatever happens.
Especially because they seem to have been so... Obviously, the Imperial Commandant was very... patronizing of the Aldani. He's like, let them have their little celebrations or whatever. But like, he did let them have it, and I have to imagine
the last one apparently though.
Yeah, it was. But the ISB was probably thinking like, this guy, this is out of hand. This is out of hand. This populace has been left with too much freedom for too long. Let's rein him in.
Let's bring the hammer down.
Let's bring the hammer down. Can you talk about how brutal it is? The Commandant dies of like a heart attack or something while he's wheeling these. I didn't even think
helping load all the gold up.
I never even thought about that when they're talking about robbing the payroll vault. They're like, we need to get in the payroll vault. I'm like, what? What does that mean? I did not realize it's just credits.
Hard credits.
It's credits.
And they don't steal. They steal like maybe a quarter of it.
Maybe. And what did he say? It was like he said it was
like it's about 80 million credits.
And this is the fact that Cassian, already a very interesting character, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can see that like I wonder what it is that made him not just run off with the credits.
I think Nemec was, getting to him a little bit.
Well, because it's obvious that even though Cassian is kind of hard and jaded by the time of Rogue One, he does believe in the rebellion.
There is a rebellion, and I think he does. There is a sense of honor about him. Like, he's not a murderer necessarily.
No.
He's trying to fulfill his end of the bargain. Like, even all the stuff he was doing on Ferrix. I don't think he was trying to like grift people necessarily. Get him out of money. He was trying to pay everyone back and keep all the loose ends tied up, but things were just spiraling out of his control.
Yeah, he just couldn't.
And here he's like, I'm taking what I was promised. Y'all are taking the rest of it. I'm not screwing y'all over, and I saved you from a potential turncoat over here. And I've seen some people even saying that, what if Skeen was just like testing him? And then Cassian I don't think that's the case, but the thing is, at this point, we might never, even if that was the case, we'd never know. Because Skeen, if he did, he completely miscalculated.
He did. I don't know. It's just, there are all these little character moments. This, I think, is just a very well-crafted episode. And, like, you know what? Maybe Boba with the Tusken Raiders is still my favorite thing in TV that we've seen. Mm-hmm. But this is still just above and beyond.
There, man.
This was such a good episode. I want more of the ISB though.
It's clear we're gonna get more.
It is. I know. But I need it right now.
Yeah, because they're also they set up the base on Ferrix itself, and then on Coruscant they're mobilizing to like get more involved. It's like I said, we're about to see the Empire hand come raining down on everybody.
Wait, what does the Empire of the Hand have to do with this?
Don't bring that up.
I don't even really know what it is.
Yeah, no one knows what it is, really. It's something Thrawn set up.
Yeah, something Thrawn set up that unfortunately Timothy Zahn was not given time to finish.
Yeah.
I think Timothy Zahn knows what it is. I think he knows what it is.
Yeah, he probably knows what it was intended to be. Oh, one thing I wanted to mention that is it's only like a potential like cool Easter egg thing. The doctor, the four-armed doctor guy, he might be a Kodru G. I don't know if you know what that is.
Cole, of course I know what a Kodru G is. Of course I know what a Kojuji is. I am the staunchest defender of the Crystal Star on this podcast.
Okay, cool. I was just asking.
That is
They're four-armed.
that was a possibility I had not considered.
And there's like different depictions of them. Like they're on Wikipedia. There's several different pieces of art. The final one that's in color, I was like, yeah, that could totally be what this guy was. And their life cycle is so fascinating.
Yeah, I would say so. Oh, I would love that. See, that's what's so funny to me is Tony Gilroy's like, no, Easter eggs, no, telling a good story, and it's like he's still like connecting things to. There's still the connective tissue there, and I'm like, Dave Filoni, I love you. You could take some cues from this man and how he runs his shows. It's like you can do. It doesn't all have to be so heavy-handed to feel connected to other things. Now, I will say, ANDOR. This is me being inconsistent. Are you ready? ANDOR. It feels a lot just like a prequel to Rogue One right now, which of course is fine. Rogue One is really good. It's not that that's bad, but it does weirdly feel kind of isolated. I think that's going to sort itself out, obviously, as the scale of the rebellion grows throughout the show. But I'm not saying we need the cameos that are, so prevalent in the Mandoverse, but maybe just a tad bit more connective tissue, or more obvious, like, it's hard to say more obvious nods to like Legends or just the canon EU or something. Do you know what I'm trying to say? Where I'm not being totally inconsistent. If it's a Kojuji, I love that. I think that's so cool. I wouldn't be shocked.
It's one of those things that they may not even be thinking that. They may be like, we wanted this four-armed
dude. He's a doctor, so yeah.
And whenever we get like the art book or the whatever it is, it'll identify him as such. Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah.
But regardless, it's like, it's like, or maybe he was like, hey, I want this doctor guy. I want him to have four arms. Like, we've got an alien for that.
That's what I hope.
And to me, that's how it should work.
I agree. I don't necessarily think, because this is going to be maybe a little inconsistent again. I don't necessarily think the story group should be the canon police. I don't want them to be the canon police, but I do want them to have input and for their input to matter at the end of the day. Yeah. And doesn't always feel that way, but with things like that, there's an alien for that, like that's the kind of stuff that I.
And again, it's one of those things like I don't know that Tony Gilroy would have known about the Gorman massacre going into making this,
right?
But I could see him being like, being either given a list of stuff of like events that are relevant to how the rebellion happens and like looking through like, oh yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking for a big Flashpoint event that we were going to show. We can totally work that in here.
Yep. Who knows?
Even though if he's not, the guy that's like, no, like, oh yeah, I remember that source book that was referenced in or whatever it was.
He is of the age.
Willing to do it.
He is of the age. You never know. I want to look up this Gorman massacre again. Anyway, ANDOR, it rips. The show is so good. Sorry, I'm looking at the Wook. Where is it? Oh yeah. Pablo Hidalgo is on the story group and is also a self-proclaimed sicko for the West End, the West End RPG. So I
for sure,
yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if he had a hand in this. Cool. I've chosen an article for this week. Can we share? Okay. This article is entitled "Wistie Language." WISTIE language. The Wistie language was spoken by the Wisties, a species of tiny, radiant humanoids from, can you guess? They're called Wisties. Can you guess where they're from? I'm curious.
Like I'm going to feel like an idiot whenever I don't know it.
You might. It's not obvious, but they're called Wisties.
Wistie. I'm drawing a blank. I'm sorry.
They're from Endor. Humanoids from Endor. This should tell you
Oh.
exactly where this is going. It consisted in buzzing, squeaking sounds, and it was possible for members of other species to understand it fluently. It appears twice. Ewoks, The Cries of the Trees, and Caravan of Courage, an Ewok adventure.
Of course.
Sourced from the illustrated Star Wars universe.
They're basically fairies.
Yeah. Someone I was listening to, I think it was like Acts of the Blood God or something. It was another podcast, and they were talking about cartoons from the 80s and like remembering 80s kids cartoons, and someone was just like, I think it's time that we all realize and all accept the fact that all the cartoons in the 80s were bad. They were bad. They were all bad. And I was thinking of like droids and Ewoks, and I'm like, at least as far as Star Wars is concerned, I think they were all bad. Like droids has got a certain charm to it. I have watched some amount of droids, but also it feels it's just wrong. It's just wrong,
Mm-hmm. I've seen like very little of any of them, so
and we're two of the biggest fans you can find, right? And there's just not a lot that's, I don't want to say there's not a lot that's redeeming about them, but there's kind of not. Like, I have watched the first 5 minutes of the first episode of Ewoks, and I'm like, I'm glad this is in my collection. I can't do this. Maybe I just don't care enough. Maybe I'm a bad fan, but maybe it's because I was born 10 years after the show came out, and it's just like the show had stopped airing and I didn't even know it existed until I was practically an adult. So
did you know that Wisties have been made canon?
Not shocked.
Well, take a guess to where they first appeared. It's a pretty weird one.
Am I likely to get it?
I mean, I don't think you're likely to get it, but you definitely know about the source. It's not like a really obscure source book or something. It's just not at all what I would have expected it to show up in. It's definitely something you're aware of. Even a fan of, I would say.
Oh God. And it's canon?
But I also would not surprised that you wouldn't realize they were in this. What a strange appearance.
Oh, this is gonna drive me nuts. Is it
It's probably not the media type you're thinking either.
I don't know. You've given me too many hints. I'm thrown off. I don't know what it is.
Battlefront 2.
Oh my God.
The DLC
What?
apparently.
What?
You got me, man.
Okay.
There's actually a screenshot where stormtroopers are being attacked by Wisties apparently.
Oh my God. That's hilarious.
Yeah, it's like, what the heck of all things.
Okay, cool. This is actually something I've noticed. Obviously, Star Wars goes back and grabs stuff from Legends all the time. They do that. That's good. I like generally on the whole. I'm glad that they do that. I'd say very much, overwhelmingly, I'm glad that they do that. I know you and I maybe disagree with that on that a little bit, but
It depends.
Exactly. It depends. But I feel like they disproportionately go back to some of like the memeiest stuff. Don't they?
Right.
Don't they? It's like
You're right,
disproportionate. Like, yeah, we're going to try to make this more believable. We're going to make it feel less like it comes from the Ewoks TV show, but it's like this thing came from the Ewoks TV show originally. Or, just the fact that Mando's, or Din's rather, sorry, he's got a name now. His air quotes, I'm going to put this in quotes because I'm the worst, pulse rifle, or just, yeah, pulse rifle, that's what they call it, because it's obviously a disruptor, but whatever, it's fine, comes from the holiday special. And it's like, come on, this is a meme. That's all this is. This is a meme.
Or like Jackson, who has more canon appearances than Legends appearances.
Don't get me started. That's like the only one that I'm actually like, let it die.
He's had so many Legends and canon appearances that he is a Black Series figure.
I don't know why you're laughing. This isn't funny.
It's hilarious.
It's not
I think
funny.
It's hilarious.
It's not funny. Oh, Kirby's in the chat now. We've got quite the chat going, don't we? Hello, everyone. You too could come hang out. Mondays, well, tonight we started at 8:15. Sometime around 8 p.m. is when Eastern time is when we're going to start doing this.
8 and 8:30 Eastern, 7:30 Central. Convert that how you will to your time zone.
This is now a very, not this one, I guess. The Skyhoppers now we have 3 time zones represented. And with the return of Mountain Time, because Ash, of course, was in Mountain Time, but this is not relevant. You know what is relevant, Cole? Darth Bane. Darth
Bane.
Freaking Bane. I've done 2 Dr. Evil things on this episode. I went pulse rifle and Darth freaking Bane. Did you oh yeah, Cole has to weirdly turn 90 degrees.
Shift my focus to the notebook so I can properly do this.
Yes, this horrible
Hopefully
thing.
My audio quality doesn't change because I can just swivel my
Yeah,
too.
This horrible thing that I learned about last week. That's been happening under my nose.
You the cold shoulder.
No, that's been happening under my nose for the last 4.5 years.
I don't remember if this was present whenever I was in my other room with my other desk.
Okay.
I don't remember if I had the exact same setup or not. I don't remember if that was the case.
Well, honestly, that room looks so full.
Like it was a lifetime ago.
It's a wonder you can even maneuver through there because that room looks so full of wonderful things, but it does not change the fact that the room is full.
Well, this room is considerably bigger than my previous room.
It's really we've definitely talked about this before. Moko, God, no longer a Des, but not yet a Darth Bane. Sorry, the chat is distracting me. Just the amount of space that all these things take up. You know, I've been talking about my Game Boy cassette cases that I've been working on. Well, I finally got the rest of my cassette cases finally came in, and I got that finished up today. And I'm just like, awesome. And Allison's like, they look nice. They also take up roughly 600% more space than they did when they were all just in a line in this tiny little cassette box that you had. And I'm like, you're right. But what's the point of collecting this stuff if I can't look at it in a cool way? I know you can understand that.
I mean, there's a reason I don't have all my Blu-rays and DVDs just in like a CD binder.
Oh,
I know people that do that actually.
The thing, honestly, Cole, I'm one of these people. I don't get rid of these things. This is for those who aren't watching, this is a 3DS case. It is baffling to me that people get a 3DS game or a DS game. Game Boy games, different. They came in cardboard boxes. I get it. You recycle those.
Yeah.
But these are hard plastic game cases. The fact that there are people who just take these and go, I don't need the case, and chuck them, it's baffling. I don't understand it. Where are you keeping these? And you're keeping them in those stupid little, the stupid little DS game cases that the tiny little pockets. I don't know. I don't like it.
Yeah. Well, I know they make like the similar thing of like a CD binder that's just got like the cartridge slots in it, so you can fit a bunch of them in like
And I respect that
space
for traveling, but for long-term storage, I mean, this is me being pedantic. They are safe for long-term storage as well. But like, I just like to see them. I like the cases. I literally bought a case for Pokemon Y because I bought Y, but I bought it secondhand and don't have a case because a person I got it from is a psycho. And they got rid of the case. Whatever. This is.
He's not gatekeeping. He's case keeping now.
I'm case keeping, not gatekeeping. Don't get it twisted, chat.
Don't get it twisted. Know what we're doing here.
Anyway, no longer a Des, not yet a Darth Bane. We're gonna catch up with him just now, I believe, and be shocked at just how much nuance there is in his character, despite the fact that he is historically one of the most evil characters.
Nuance, even though he is definitely evil.
He's definitely not a good guy.
But again, it's one of those things that you see the journey.
You see the journey.
If he hadn't had the upbringing he had, lived through and then followed into the Sith ranks, who knows what he would have turned out to be.
And I think that's the most interesting thing about him, where it's like, because I think it's one of those. It's the same thing with like Ben Solo. If Ben Solo wasn't being manipulated by Snoke, he probably would have turned out just fine, right?
Snoke.
Yeah, he probably would have turned out just fine. Whereas Bane is like, you could have gone any direction. You could have ended up in the same place if you had, if you were just kind of an Outer Rim Force user who the Jedi didn't pick up on. But you could have gone a different way.
Jedi had stumbled across him, maybe he could have turned out to be a Jedi. I
Exactly.
don't think so, but maybe. At the right age, maybe.
Yeah,
Like, if they'd stumbled onto him like young and like bought him from his father or something. Which seems like something his father would have been in.
Yes.
Him, but...
Anyway, chapters 7 through 12, unless I'm mistaken. Yep. Cool.
Yep, chapter 7, and we're picking up with the Gloomwalkers out for their mission that Des has kind of gone rogue on a little bit, taking out their commanding officer because it was a stupid plan.
I'm going to make it better.
And he had a better one, kind of. Well, he didn't have a better plan, but he knew the one they were going in for was suicide. So he was like, well, we'll have a better chance of doing it like this.
Yeah.
And they've encircled the Republic outpost and got their interference boxes set up. And now he's like surveying the situation. He's like, crap, this looks really bad. They've got these pulsar craft of some sort with, guns mounted on the back of them. And they're set up effectively to defend the camp. As soon as they open fire or see anybody, it's just going to be a bloodbath as people try to assault the camp. And because the interference boxes are set up, they can't coordinate their assault beyond, start firing. And then everyone's just going to attack.
Yeah.
So, unfortunately, he's put in the position of just having to open fire and hope they can get it done.
Mm-hmm.
And he takes a sniper rifle and in a, I don't know, fit of rage, I don't know what you want to call it. Like it says, like a red veil comes over his eyes and he, starts firing. Gets off a few shots successfully, takes out a couple guys, but then gets flashbanged. But amongst the flashbang, blinding his eyes, other senses come forth.
Do you want to know, Cole? I believe that you've used the wrong past tense of flashbang. I believe the past tense is you have been flashbung. One has been flashbung.
I'll stand corrected.
Oh God! Before we get too much further, Mogo did bring up this point last week, and it I think is a really interesting comparison. Mogo sees Bane and Bane's path as like what happened if maybe Anakin was never found by Qui-Gon, and I'm like, yeah, quite possibly. Like it's maybe not like a 1-to-1 thing, but Anakin very easily could have murdered his way out of slavery at a certain point. Once he realized, if he was able to develop any sort of control, he realized, I can save myself and my mom. I can get us out of here and just do it, Mm-hmm. So that is of course a risky path to be walking. So yeah, definitely some substance to that comparison, I think. But anyway, Bane, has been flashbung and can't see.
And Kirby mentioned Infinity's Bane, covered in white obelisks.
I was gonna let that one
You can
sit.
see my white Vader in the background there.
I was gonna let that one sit because I was like, this is funny, but also I don't like it.
Makes zero sense.
I don't like it.
Good stuff.
I'm glad we built this community of like-minded nerds who all are just like, we can just say, hey, Infinity's Bane, white obelisk, and everyone is like slapping their knees like, oh, what a good one, that's so funny. Meanwhile, the normies are like, what? What is that?
If you don't know what that is, stay tuned.
We'll get there. We'll get there one day sooner rather than later.
At some point.
Yeah. I guess that's a better way to put it.
It's also interesting to note in Bane's mind, he's like going through this cycle where he's basically like, he's got the same like path of emotions that Yoda warns about.
Yeah.
Fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate, but instead of hate leading to suffering, hate leads to strength.
Well, somebody's suffering.
Yeah, somebody's suffering, but it's just him making them suffer instead of the other way around.
when he
So
goes.
he's like, oh, strength and then victory. Boom.
So anyway, he
Almost
started.
took the Sith mantra down.
So anyway, he started blasting.
So anyway, he started blasting. Even blinded, even flash bung, he is even more powerful now. More powerful than you could possibly
It's
imagine.
terrifying. It's terrifying to read that he is just like, I can't. He's like, I'm not even controlling myself. I am literally. It's basically. It's like he's aimbotting these guys, these soldiers in real life.
Yep.
It's messed up.
Just perfectly snipes all of them, and that basically secures victory because they're not able to lay defense, and the Sith Gloomwalkers just mosey on in, take them all out, and in the end, they only lose like 9 dudes.
Which is pretty good, I guess, given the.
He's like he hates that they lost even that many, but he's like the fact that we didn't even lose double digits is really impressive.
Yeah, it's like. I think the way the fact that the battle is not even really expounded upon at all outside of Bane's part in it shows just like how effective he is. It's like that was it. Like he took them out and then they just went in. They took out the guns.
Over them.
Yep.
So victory assured. They return to base, and of course, as soon as they get there, there's some security guys there because Ulabor has tattled on him, as it were. You're like, oh, it's like you went too far this time, kid. Can I knock you down a peg?
I was bummed to see it. Like, obviously, it ends up kind of working out for him, but like, I was bummed to see that Ulabor just like rat him out. I would have liked to see Ulabor have some amount of respect and like to have that that relationship that Bane thought they could have, but obviously Bane also is not stupid and knew that this was more likely than not that what was going to happen.
Yep. So he is cuffed and hauled away despite his troopers' protests, and they were like willing to get in, like try to stop him from hauling him off. He's like, no, that's not going to accomplish anything. But he has some satisfaction in knowing that Ulabor is probably not going to survive their next engagement.
Yeah, because it's Bane
He's
is
like, they all hate him now, and they've removed the guy that was actually, making them competent soldiers. So, yeah, he's probably going to die.
He's probably going to suffer, what is it, a very unfortunate and fatal accident.
Yeah. Oh, man,
There's
some unfortunate friendly fire.
And that's the thing. It's like, I am not a proponent of violence, generally speaking. But when it's something like that, there's something that's so sweet about that, isn't there? Where it's like that camaraderie. They're like, you narked on the wrong guy, buddy. It's like was your pride worth your life? Probably not.
Yeah, and he's not even thinking about that. He's just thinking of the satisfaction. If he had, it's one of those things, if he had thought about it more clearly, maybe he would have realized that, but he's a small-minded fool.
Nope, middle management. Middle management. It's the same no matter the circumstance, I think.
Yeah, yep.
Anyway.
So, Bane hauled off to the main Sith camp where he's thrown in a pit where they keep their prisoners, even though there's not anyone in there right now because, as he notes, the Sith don't really suffer prisoners very long. They just execute them.
Yeah.
So,
I thought you were going to say there was a Wookiee down there, and he fought him, and they fought their way out and became best friends, but no.
Yeah, it's a really wild story. We really thought this was going Wonder Way. Turns out he's
empty pit.
But he's held there for like a day or so, and then a mysterious, dark cloaked figure appears above and tells the men to haul him out, and he's going to be taken to Korriban, where he will deal with him himself. Ooh, mystery. What could that mean?
Oh, I think we both know.
Chapter 8, he's taken to Korriban and left on the roof of some temple. He expected he was going to be taken to like the main city, but he's taken to some temple that he doesn't know, escorted deep into the bowels of the temple, and then sits even lower.
I do feel compelled to point something out because you just called the main city.
I didn't write it down.
Dreshte is the name of the settlement, and that's where you land in Knights of the Old Republic. When you go to Korriban.
That was what it was.
Yep, and it was funny to me that you're just like, the main city, and I'm like, don't we all know what Dreshte... Cole doesn't know what Dreshte is.
Unless it was in... It's not in, like, Jedi Outcast or Jedi Academy, I don't think.
No, it's definitely
you just go straight to the Valley of the Sith.
Yeah.
So yeah, this dress day.
Yes.
I said it wasn't one of those ones that stuck in my head. I figured it was a reference to something, but I didn't look it up immediately.
Mm-hmm.
Shame on me.
Yep. Well, one of these days you'll get patient enough. You'll fight your way through it, and you'll be like, "Wow, I
Or
have."
I'll wait for the remake to come out if it ever comes out.
Yeah, I guess that's an if, not a when at this point.
Yeah,
Although I think last
unfortunately.
we heard it was moved to another studio, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
that was the last we'd heard for sure, but I still don't think there's been that was secondhand sources.
It was secondhand sources, but I mean, it's also one of those things that they're probably not going to talk about in a firsthand kind of way.
No, they're never going to talk about how the development was terrible.
Yeah, but I at least feel like it's likely to come out again. Is it soon? I don't know.
No, it's
But-
probably still at least 3 or 4 years away.
But will it come out? I'm confident that it will one of
Yeah.
these days.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure it will. So he goes deep, deep, deep into the Sith Temple, eventually being sent off on his own down another deep stairway until he eventually encounters the what he knows now as the hooded figure, a large Twi'lek man
Mm-hmm.
named Kopex, who we've already met, at least briefly.
Yeah.
And he tells Des that he is going to be the inquisitor of this situation and his judgment will be final. And he asks, about the situation, what happened, and then, kind of goes on. It's like, hey, I've heard all about you, and I think that you have the Force. And what do you know about the Force? Kind of goes into what about the Sith and the Jedi, what's been going on. Des just has heard, the stories. Doesn't really believe in it necessarily, but Kopek's like, no, it's real, and it's probably more than you could possibly imagine. But
Mm-hmm.
and you have it, and if you want, you can join us, train here. And he doesn't really give an alternative, but I assume if the alternative he would actually be court-martialed, probably,
Probably.
or he might just be killed. I don't know. The fact
Well-
that they brought him all the way to Korriban, if he said no, I think you might just be dead.
Yeah, I actually thought this was interesting. I don't know if it's here or if it's a little. I know it's in this little chunk here near the beginning of the chapters, talking about the structure of Sith training, how they have different kind of classes, basically like different RPG classes of Sith training on different worlds. I thought that was interesting, and how that Korriban is like these are the best of the best. Like these are our prime candidates.
Yeah, these are the ones that are going to become like Sith Lords, Sith
Yep.
Masters.
Yes. So
The ones
just
that have the most potential, so they're getting the most special treatment, basically.
Yep. Just a fun little special treatment or hardest lives, I guess, depending on how you look at it. Doesn't seem like things are particularly fun around ye old Sith Academy.
No, it's like evil Hogwarts, basically.
Except instead of
it's like Hogwarts, only it's only Slytherins.
it's only Slytherins, and instead of wands, they have sticks that numb your entire body and cause well,
Yes.
but not before they cause excruciating pain.
Of course,
Oh,
it is the way of things.
This is the way of things.
Yeah. So Kovac's like, hey, so you can join us, and and Des like, yeah, I'm totally in for it. And then he's like, hey, a lot of people when they come here, they also take themselves, a whole new name, a new identity, basically. It's like, do you want to do that? He's like, yeah, I think I will. Bane of the Sith. His mental, reasoning's like, I'll take what made me weak before and use it to become stronger.
Which is funny, because to me, that was like, if we're looking at like Bane being rumored to be the Sith RA, which I'm assuming it has to come in these chapters.
Yeah.
There are like rumblings of that rumor anyway. The fact that he goes right to that tells me that like it lends some credence to that. I think the fact that he immediately goes, I will take what I thought held me back and made me weak, and I will use it as strength.
Mm-hmm.
That is a very Sith thing, and he knows nothing about their ways.
Yeah.
It just goes
He's
straight.
already got the mindset.
He
I
goes
said,
right to
earlier
that.
in the chapter, he's like already almost quoting the Sith mantra in his head.
Yes.
He hasn't learned it as such, but he's already like got the basic ideas. Like, hey, I just take my rage and it just makes me better. So let's just go.
And of course, he's like, I'm the main character of this story. And we're like, This is not good for all the people that we love. This
Yep,
is gonna be bad.
Yep, and yeah, the very next thing is the meeting with Cordis and Kopex, and he's like questioning Kopex for bringing this guy here. He's like, he's already so old, and didn't have any training whatsoever. But Kopech's like, no, this guy, he's got it. He's got the necessary potential. He could be the Sith Ari, which we don't know what that is yet, but it's like, ooh, prophecy, some sort nonsense, I'm sure, because that's how Star Wars stuff works.
I don't think I fully appreciated how much he is just dark side Anakin Skywalker. I don't think I like down to the prophecy. I don't think I made those connections in Nega Anakin. I don't think I'd made those connections in the past, but it is like 100% just the same thing. Like, too old. No, we can't train him, but it's like, but this prophecy says this thing. And they're like, well, if you insist.
Well, if he survives training, cool.
Yeah.
And that brings us to Part 2 and Chapter 9. Part 2 begins with him just becoming Darth Bane, Bane proper.
Mm-hmm.
He'll get Darth later, as we'll find out.
Spoiler.
Spoiler, name of the book.
Name of the book, right?
So Bane's training starts the next day with Cordis personally doing some training, and he gives him the actual Sith code. Peace is a lie, there is only passion. Through passion, I gain strength. Through strength, I gain power. Through power, I gain victory. Through victory, my chains are broken. And Bane's like, yeah, I kind of already knew that, but putting an actual, like, into it is really nice.
I kind of already knew that.
I kind of figured it out myself, but, having it as an actual mantra is pretty cool.
That's really good. I love that. Bane just being
verbalizing something I was already thinking.
It's too good.
Yep. And this is when he gets told about the other academies, like you mentioned briefly. And we find out that there's academies on Onager, Gentis, and Gamor, where they train Marauders, which is like berserker warriors, basically. More like slightly up from cannon fodder, but not much better.
Which is funny because like some of these are like Marauder, I think. Yeah, is one of the subclasses for the Sith warrior in the Old Republic. And I think it's funny that like that DNA is already there. Now, granted, well, no, because I mean, it's hard because I think you want to be like, well, you're either a Jedi or you're not. And there are very specific, levels of being a Jedi, like Youngling, Padawan, Knight, Master. But these seem like they are like a Marauder. Theoretically, a Youngling will reach Master status one day. A Marauder is not necessarily going to hit Sith Lord, which is an interesting comparison.
I kind of get the impression, at least, that even if you get sent to one of these other schools first, you might get like promoted.
Sure,
to another
that makes
one.
sense.
But I think probably a lot of the time that's probably what happens, unless they find somebody that's like Bane was like truly exceptional. They don't get sent straight to Korriban, but special circumstances and stuff. But yeah, there's the Marauder schools on those planets, and there's the assassin schools on Ryloth, Umbara, and Nar Shaddaa.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally, like the main academies are, what was it? Dathomir and Iridonia are the two other like main schools, and then Korriban is like the creme de la crop,
Yeah, that's funny.
The big boys.
That's funny that for some reason there are two academies on the planets that. Well, sorry, I just realized the Zabrak are not from Dathomir in canon, are they?
In Legends, they are, or not?
That's what I meant. Legends.
Well, after Clone Wars, I guess they are, but but it is interesting they mentioned like Iridonian Zabrak, but not necessarily. That's the only. There's not like Zabrak the world, I guess.
No, there's not, which is even more confusing. What's even more confusing is that there are Iridonians, I think, or maybe it's like Oh, Christ! I'm gonna look this up now. Because I know there's a. Let me see if I can find it. Anyway, continue. I will see if I can find what I was talking about.
Yeah, so Bane, gets the hierarchy here, but he's like, "Hey, I'm special. I got brought to the top of the class already." So that's fun. And at the end of this little lesson, he anoints Bane in blood, his own blood, which is Bane finds kind of revolting, even though he's been through a lot of stuff already. He's like, "Oh, this is kind of gruesome, actually." Cordis seems like a not great guy.
No, I'm not a fan. I will say I found out what it is that I was looking for, and I was right. I believe it's KOTOR or KOTOR 2. There is an Iridonian mercenary. I think he's a bounty hunter or like a gladiator.
It's not Zabrak.
Not a Zabrak, specifically an Iridonian, colloquially called Iridorians, and of course, that piqued my interest because to me, Iridonians, colloquially called Iridorians. Reading that, I'm like, there's a mistake here somewhere. Someone made a mistake. Someone made a mistake. And sure enough, the behind the scenes talking about how it was a typo that was not, that was not being corrected. But apparently Lucasfilm directed them to say Iridonian. So what? Like the Zabrak are from Iridonia. Iridonians are like not, we don't know. This has thrown me off forever, and that's why in my head,
it's one of those things that them being also, some of them being from Dathomir, kind of like, oh, okay, so I guess the Zabrak species is not necessarily indigenous to a single planet, or at least not that we were aware of, like as originally a homeworld. Because
sure.
Humans also are not from a single planet that we know of,
right?
In the Star Wars universe, at least as far as I'm aware of.
That is something that's really interesting to me too. Is just because obviously the answer is that we are human. That's why there are so many humans in Star Wars. So it's like, sure, that's fine. But I do start to wonder, like, how did humans propagate in a way like Ishi-Tib are not all over the same way that humans are.
Mm-hmm. I feel like there's been at least some acknowledgement of that in some books or something, where they talk about the fact that humans are like so populous, like rats or something. Like they compare us to some like vermin. It's like, yeah, they're kind of just everywhere. They can survive anything, and like they're not the most hardy species, but they're very adaptable or something.
Well,
I feel like that's been brought up at some point, and so it's like there's like an in-universe logic to the fact that it's a fiction made by humans, and so having everyone be aliens is just unpractical.
Humans being rats reminds me of there's a sorry, I'm gonna explain a meme on the podcast. Have you seen the meme format that is Jesse and Walter White talking in the diner? They're both wearing like the Kenny Rogers shirts, and Jesse's saying stuff, and Walt's just like, "What are you talking about?" Like, there's one that's the Skaven are rat people in Warhammer Age of Sigmar. So like the fantasy Warhammer.
Yeah.
And then in Warhammer 40K, there are no Skaven, but there's the Imperium of Man. And this meme is Jesse comparing the humans to the rat people across the two games, and I'm like, you're right. It's the same thing. On a galactic scale, humans are
we're sentient vermin.
Sentient vermin. That's all. That's what we are here. Why would that change elsewhere? But anyway, I always think that's very funny. So, but now back to Star Wars, away from Warhammer. Away from Warhammer. Blissfully away from Warhammer.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we learn a little bit about the training that goes on at Korriban. It's like there's some like group lesson stuff, but most of it is like individual training, like self-directed training, one-on-one training with the different masters that are present, because rivalry is encouraged. It is a very confrontational school, in that group training would keep everyone together, whereas hold back the ones that are stronger and encourage the weak ones, and that's not what they're going for here.
Yep.
They're very much like, no. If you're better, just keep getting better.
But also do it secretly, because we're Slytherins. Open confrontation is not welcome, but underhanded
except for in lightsaber training.
Yeah, sure. But like underhanded scheming and that backstabbing is.
If you can surreptitiously, get your other students killed, and we don't find out about it, all good, man.
And I will say that it's like there's just kind of a very, I hesitate to say libertarian approach. I don't mean to give the libertarians a bad name like that. But like, it's like that they're okay with murder, because obviously most of them are not, I would assume. But just it's one of those things that's obviously kind of evil in its own way, but to me is different. It's not like entirely overtly evil. They're not advocating killing each other, but they're like, hey, if you can get away with it, that's fine. And it's kind of just that neutral outlook, of course, is leads to negative repercussions, but is interesting because the Sith are always painted as evil, the dark side, that they're the bad ones. And it's like, they are, but we haven't seen a whole lot that they've done that's like actively evil currently. They're fighting the Republic, who we classically see as the good guys, but really, if you look at the Gloomwalkers are all, likable, respectable soldiers. And the Republic soldiers we've seen have kind of been douchebags. You know what I mean? Yep. So it's interesting how it's not shocking that this is the book where that kind of gets flopped on its head, but it is interesting to me for sure.
Yep. So Bane, at least at the beginning of his studies here, he spends a lot of time in the library. Go Bane, being a bookworm.
We love that.
He believes that a lot of the secrets of the past are probably going to lead to his success later. Even though most of the Sith stuff is all in like papers and books and scrolls, because Jedi have been extremely thorough in getting rid of all the digital stuff, all the holograms, and
yeah.
So they have like a literal library, and so he spends a lot of time there digging through the books, because most of the other students don't bother. They're way more interested in the hands-on learning stuff. And Bane will come to that place, but he starts off in the books a lot.
Yeah.
And the only time that there's really like a huge like dedicated group learning stuff is the saber training stuff, which we will find a little bit later.
Mm-hmm.
But he believes that more and more now that relying on just himself is the key, because trusting others is ultimately going to fail every time, as you saw working in the mines didn't get him anywhere. And even with the Gloomwalkers, he did the thing that was necessary to do, and his soldiers would have stuck up for him, but it wouldn't have done any good to begin with. In the end, he was still going to get busted down,
right?
So he just has to make himself more and more powerful.
Interesting. I'll be curious to see if he like codifies that in some way going forward. That kind of trust only yourself.
It seems like he's almost already developing some kind of rule, you would say.
Curious to see where that goes.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye on that.
Put a pin in that one.
And then we get a little bit of a glimpse of the wider war, slightly. Lord Khan, he's leading a fleet attack on Ruusan, which is noted later in the same chapter that this is the first battle of Ruusan.
Seems now. Which is funny because it's a dirt ball. Like, it's
like nothing there.
There is, I'm not going to talk about it right now. There is a lot. Ruusan is a planet with a lot of baggage.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're aware of it as well. There is a lot of connective tissue surrounding Ruusan that I'm excited to talk about at a little later date, a little bit of a later date.
Gotcha. Yeah, we'll certainly get there, because we'll be spending more time in Ruusan as the book develops.
Yeah.
So first, the attack seems like it's going really well. They come out of hyperspace blasting. Lord Khan is doing battle meditation, which is really turning the battle in their favor. They catch the Republic completely off guard. For a little bit, it seems like it's going to be just a complete rout, and then the tide turns as a Jedi goes to battle meditation as well, countering it, and the Republic forces are like more numerous. So it starts to turn, and then Lord Kopex, sensing the Jedi as well, enters the Republic ship through the hangar and just goes through and kills him.
And
as soon as it happens, it's just like, oh, battle's over, basically.
Yeah, I do think it's interesting to see, because battle meditation stems from Tales of the Jedi. That's it. That's got roots far back in the EU. But I know that during the war with um the oh shoot, what are their names? Saul and Alima Keto, I believe are their names. The rich, the aristocrats, the Krath, in the Sith War and that era. They use some semblance of battle meditation, but it's more like Sith magic to like to create illusions. It's interesting to see the Sith using just straight up battle meditation, and like the fact that it's not like not a not rare thing, but also the fact that it's like these two Force users can both do it and are both here at the same time. I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting that Khan, he notes like he's not like particularly good at battle meditation. He's like kind of a jack of all trades Sith. Like he's pretty good at everything, but he's not like the best of the best. And then this Jedi comes in, and they're probably like a battle meditation specialist. Because as soon as they come in, it starts turning the other direction really quickly.
Yeah, that's
but
actually
whenever Kopex comes in, this Jedi doesn't even try to fight him. Cause...
This is something Fetmatic in chat brings up an interesting point, and I don't know if maybe you know if this is actually confirmed or not. Palpatine. Does Palpatine actually utilize battle meditation, or is that still just a theory?
I don't know that we ever like witness it happening. It's one of those things that Thrawn like suspects was the case.
Right.
And believes that was like part of the reason the Imperial Navy was so successful, and particularly credits that to the failure at ANDOR.
Because when he dies, that's when everything starts to fall apart.
When he dies, and it's one of those things like, yeah, that very well might have been true, or it might have been just like, hey, the Emperor just got killed, and also the battle station blew up. That was the center of our whole strategy, basically. So it's one of those things. I don't know that we've ever seen it like firsthand, really confirmed, beyond speculation on other people's part.
Yeah,
I don't know. I really don't know if there's a primary source on that, honestly.
Okay, I'd be interested to see a battle in which the destruction of a Death Star on your side does not lead to a total rout, regardless of the circumstances surrounding it. Because I have to imagine that if it were me, I'd be like, oh no, you're just demoralized. Like, what are we even here for? But yeah, I don't know. Interesting. So obviously, I'm not saying Palpatine does not use it, but I was wondering if it had been confirmed anywhere, because I know that was the theory.
Yeah, I don't know if that's ever been. Like I said, we never really get much Palpatine being involved in battles at all.
Yeah, I think that's probably by design. Anyway,
one of those things. It wouldn't surprise me at all if he definitely has the skill.
Oh, for sure.
To do it, and if he was there at ANDOR doing that. That makes total sense, especially at least up until Luke shows up, and he's gonna, divert his attention to young Skywalker.
Well, and see, that's such an interesting thing too. Thinking about concentration, and it's like, as someone who is limited to my own consciousness and only being able to touch my own consciousness, thinking about what it must be like to have to concentrate on influencing all of those people, both for the positive on your side and on the negative for your enemies. It's just not. I think it's not fathomable for most normal humans. But anyway, battle meditation. That Jedi specialist, cut down, gone, dead.
Yeah,
it's over.
Female Syrian Jedi, which don't get named, and I don't know if we even know if it's someone specific. If it was like a reference to something, I don't know.
Bet the Syrians weren't very
Regardless,
happy.
They die.
Bet they weren't very happy. They took her away. There are not many, not many female Syrians.
And I mentioned the species of the.
Or is it males? Is it males that there aren't very many of?
I don't remember.
I just know that Ki-Adi Mundi has like 5 wives. Is like, and
that
he's
makes me think that the males are the more rare.
The males are the more rare ones. Okay, never mind.
That makes me think that at least, but I don't know.
No, I think you'd be right. I've just got it backwards. I'm gonna look it up just to make sure to make my failure
ends
complete.
Up being a rout for the Sith, and no Republic forces even survive the battle. So they've conquered Ruusan. Congratulations for the moment. Chapter 10, we skip forward a few months. Bane's been training really well, advancing. He's already like surpassed some of the other students there at the academy, even though they've been there longer than him. And it's making him a little bit prideful, probably. He's like, oh yeah, I'm the big dog here. And he's spending less and less time in the library too.
I have bad news. We're both wrong.
We're both wrong.
Syrians, it's just low birth rate.
Oh.
So it's not an imbalance necessarily. It is just a low birth rate. So
interesting.
Anyway, continue.
Yep. So Bane, less book time, more other types of training, and this is where we get a little bit of a focus on the lightsaber training under Lord Kazim, who is another Twi'lek, which is interesting. There's two main Twi'lek Siths
I know.
Here. And he is a saber master specialist, and he's training all these students, and he studies with them and determines which lightsaber form of combat they're going to be specializing in based on their particular sets of skills, as it were. And Bane ends up with Form 5 Jimso because of his strength and size.
Mm-hmm.
It balances that really well. And they train with sabers that are made of metal, but they're also covered in these like little bitty barbs filled with pelco venom, which
didn't sound
both
fun.
burns your skin really severely, like makes it feel like it's burning, and also paralyzes wherever it hits. So it's a really effective training tool. It simulates lightsaber combat pretty well, actually.
It actually does, and it's bad that it has to come to that. But I mean, it's like you get hit in the arm. Well, so your arm is effectively not there anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
and apparently the sabers were even balanced and weighted such to simulate lightsabers as much as possible. I don't know how that exactly works.
I was getting ready to say, like, that is an interesting concept, to say the least. Like, how much does...
I would have to imagine that maybe there's, like, they just use an extremely light metal as the blade, and maybe a heavier metal in the hilt, so that it's...
Right.
Simulates... It's one of those things... There's definitely been some sources, and, like, some, like, the original intention for sabers was that even lightsabers' blades have weight.
Well...
It's one of those weird things that... It seems like it's been refuted since, but I know that was at least at one point.
George Lucas,
the intention.
George Lucas said they were too heavy to wield with one hand.
Yeah.
And it's like
in his own movies it happens. So.
Well, yeah. I think because I think by the time it was Return of the Jedi, the choreographers were like, "Look, George, we can make this look so much better if you just let us break this rule."
Mm-hmm.
So
even in Empire Strikes Back, it happens.
It happens a lot. Maybe it was Empire. That I was.
I feel like whenever Luke goes down and it gets his arm chopped off, he's using one hand.
That's true.
So yeah, I figured that's probably right. In A New Hope, I think they definitely keep both hands on the saber the whole time.
Yeah. Which okay, it's getting late. I can't get too bogged down in this. I'm pretty sure in Obi-Wan's hut, at one point, someone is holding the lightsaber with just one hand.
Oh, Luke definitely just like, one-handed.
Oh, you're right. Absolutely. So
yeah.
I'm done. I give up. I want to think about it more.
It's one of those things that
it doesn't.
Like you said, that may have been what George originally thought about with it and said as much, but then we've obviously seen way more since then that's, wielding two lightsabers at the same time.
Or simply just ignoring what you said in the first half hour of your own movie.
Yeah,
George Lucas thinks. Just George Lucas thinks.
He does what he does because he is the maker, as it were.
Yeah, he can do what he wants, I guess.
Yeah, so they do saber training every morning, meet under Kazim's watchful eye, and at first they just do exercises, and he'll correct them on forms and stuff. And then at the end of the training session, they all gather up, circle up, and they do challenge duels where they can challenge each other. They don't you don't have to accept a challenge, but it's all about building your own prestige and your own infamy, basically. So Bane, when he first got there, refused a lot of challenges because he's very inexperienced with this and he didn't want to just get his butt kicked. But recently, he's been doing a lot of challenges and mostly successfully. And he gets challenged by one Foarth, something like that. It's hard to say.
Sure, your guess is as good as mine. Yeah. Lizard guy.
And he's lizard dude, and he's from a Markurth, which I looked up, and apparently this is their only place they ever appear.
Not shocking. They didn't. To me, they didn't.
But there was a piece of art for them.
Really?
Yeah,
They
a
didn't.
single piece of art.
They didn't really seem that interesting to me, if I can be honest.
Yeah,
It just
Bane
seems
kind of
like
compares them to Trandoshans a little bit.
yeah, and it's just like I think they're probably just Trandoshan, but worse maybe. I don't know. We'll see.
Hmm. So they duel. He called him out, duels him. First, the duel goes really well, and then Foarth manages a pretty good hit on his arm, which basically should end the fight since it's his good arm, and Bane is not competent with just his left hand. But the guy's, sees that he's basically won, starts taunting him a bunch, riles him up, and when he goes for the kill, Bane just blasts him back with the Force, and then chokes him to death.
Which, honestly, if I saw this thing in real life, I would also probably want to choke it to death. This
pretty nasty looking,
this
right?
is bad. This looks bad. This is one of the ugliest aliens I've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
Oh. Also, the way they describe him choking it is like choking to death too. Like there's like red froth or pink froth in his mouth. I'm like, oh, this is
it's pretty nasty.
gruesome.
And before Bane finishes him off, Kazim's like, "That's enough, Bane," but then doesn't do anything. He just lets it play out.
Yeah.
Because in the saber dueling thing, that's the only place where this open conflict is even allowed, really. Even though they're really still not supposed to kill each other. They also, the master's like, well, let it be, I guess. So he does it, and then as soon as he's finished, he just walks away. And he's like parched way down the steps, and Sirac follows him, who is the top student at the academy. One Zabrak, of course, a yellow one this time, not a red one. Maybe similar to one. What's his face?
Malfoy.
Maul's brother.
Oh, Maul's brother. I said Malfoy. I'm like, yeah,
he's definitely the Malfoy.
Yeah, he's the Malfoy. Yeah, sure. Savage.
Savage, yes, Savage.
I do want
similar to Savage.
I do want to jump in. The Makurth, that species dates all the way back to Return of the Jedi's production. They are a cut.
Oh.
They are a cut alien species. There's a maquette that was made, but they were a cut species that never made it into Jabba's palace.
Okay, so this is cool. This is the deep cut.
Yeah.
Their only actual appearances were in Darth Bane, I think.
It's this. Yes, they do not appear, which is interesting. That the art is from the Star Wars collectible card game, which is very interesting to me. That like this, I guess it being a Return of the Jedi behind the scenes thing makes it far more likely that I understand why this has art, whereas it might not have. It was just one appearance, there's so many one-off appearances that just never get any sort of never.
Yeah, I figured
get that.
if it wasn't like you said from the collectible card game or something, I figured it could have been from one of the like Jedi versus Sith books, or something depicting Bane's first kill or whatever. That wouldn't surprise me necessarily. But yeah, it makes sense too. Yep. So Sirac confronts him and is like, basically like, hey, I don't do challenges. I mean, I don't issue challenges. If people want to challenge me, they can, but I don't have time to waste on anyone. But I'm watching you now, so whenever you decide to challenge me, I'm ready for you. Because he's the, smug.
I was gonna say I already don't like him.
Top of the class.
I already do not like him.
No reason to. No reason to. He's even got a couple of flunkies that are also Zabraks.
Crab and Goyle, I know. It's like that's what I thought. I did think that was funny. That it's like, why are you guys following him around? Like, it just seems like such a high school thing and not a Sith thing at all.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know.
It is what it is. You always gang up on these kind of things.
I guess.
But that takes us to chapter 11, and Bane goes to Cordis. He's summoned there for judgment, he assumes. And the whole night, he didn't sleep very well because he's thinking about what he did, he killed him. But he's going over it in his head. He can't wrap his head around. He's like, I shouldn't have done it, but it felt good. And, and it feels like all of the Sith stuff, all the the mantra and the training and what they're told, but then how they're expected to act here doesn't really make sense. It's like, Sith is all about elevating yourself, but then and showing no mercy and all this. But then we have to hold back whenever we're fighting. It's like, what the heck? What are we supposed to do?
Again, I just wonder if he'll write this down or something.
Yeah,
If
it
he'll
really feels like he really needs to codify this.
Yeah, I mean, maybe not. Maybe he does something later on. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. There's time. We're less than halfway through the book.
That's true. That's what I was kind of talking about with the nuance, where it's like I'm not gonna pretend that he's a good guy who exists somewhere in like a morally ambiguous zone, because that's not true.
Real bad guys.
He's not a good guy at all. But the fact that he is ruminating on this kill, and he's like, well, I didn't really have to do, like you said, I didn't have to do that. But I did, and I don't regret it, but also wonder if I should have. And this gets him into that cycle of basically just like performance anxiety, where it's like, I can't do this anymore because I am too caught up. He gets too caught up in his own brain, which of course is me jumping ahead, but
a little bit. But Cordis basically tells him the same thing. He's like, hey, we don't normally, let the students kill each other, but also we make exceptions because that's how the strong rise to the top, basically. Like, this is the way of the Sith, the strong crush the weak. It's like, we can't, step on y'all every time this happens, because otherwise we wouldn't have any good students here.
To me, there was a little bit, it felt not in a bad way necessarily, but it felt a little Force video gamey because this is where he's describing like the Force shield, right? Where it's like anyone should have been able to, like, he let his guard down. And that's like, that shouldn't have happened to somebody who was employing the Force properly. And it's not video gamey, air quotes, but it felt that way, where it's like, well, here's the check to this, like, to Force choke, right?
Yeah, it's one of those things that, like, it kind of answers the questions, like, why do they always fight with lightsabers whenever they can just Force choke each other or shoot lightning at each other? It's like, because they're Force users, like, they're trained to counter that kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's why you can't just Force grab the lightsaber out of the other dude's hand and just win instantly.
Yeah, because there's a shield there. There's some sort of there's like, a check built in.
You're fighting them to try to break their concentration, and then you can do that kind of stuff.
Or sometimes you get lucky and just kill them with the lightsaber,
Yeah, sometimes you just get them with the lightsaber, It's all, the chess match of the fight.
Yeah.
And it's not just the saber, there's also the Force. It's all part of the same, tool set.
Yeah.
When you're fighting. Yeah, so Cordis doesn't punish Bane. He's like, yeah, this is the way it is. Good thing you made it, I guess. And sends him on his way. And before he leaves, Bane asks about the Sith Ari, because the word has been getting around the campus, as it were. Mainly talking about Sirac. It's like, maybe he's the Sith Ari, and he asks about it, and Cordis is like, yeah, it's an ancient, like, Sith legend about some Sith rising to prominence to rule all of them. He's like, people think it's him because he's the top of the class, but, we don't know anything. I don't necessarily believe in it, but some really, really do, so, we'll see. It's all a wait and see.
It's just interesting. These Sith are not presented in a way that is consistent with what I like know of the Sith. This whole Brotherhood of Darkness thing is.
Oh yeah, it's definitely it's deliberately antithetical to how we're presented the Sith.
That is true. You're right. So that must be it, because it feels weird, to say the least.
Yeah, and we kind of see it a little bit with Cordis and Copex are like, they're Sith rivals. Like they were like antagonistic with each other up until that Khan formed the Brotherhood of Darkness. Like they probably would have just fought to each other's death at some point if he hadn't, put his foot down, like, hey, you both have your own specialties, get to it.
Well, I mean, that's just what that's what the Sith do. If you look at Ula Keldroma and Exar Kun, going all the way back to them, or even the Golden Age of the Sith, you go all the way back, and you've got all the old Sith lords fighting each other. That's just how they do it.
Yep. And we will see all that come to a head at a later point.
Oh yes, in a very dramatic sense.
Foreshadowing. And that night, Bane, when he sleeps, he dreams of the last night that his father beat him, and that was also the night that his father died.
I hope you die.
And,
I hope you die. I hope you die.
he realizes that, oh, I did that. Like, I literally willed my father to die and killed him with the Force. Gave him a heart attack.
Again, because it's so funny because Bane has been very rational up to this point, like, angry, but rational up to this point. But this is where I think he fully gets to that point where he's like, I am not well. Where he's like, he cannot use the Force anymore he doesn't feel the same way. Because even though he hated his father, I guess, I never.
There's some trauma involved in that.
Yes.
Realizing you murdered your dad, no matter what circumstances there were.
Right. Because
even if he's only not realizing it now, he's like, oh crap, this has been affecting me way longer than I thought.
Yeah, and I think that even if it's, I don't know. This is that nuance I was talking about earlier, where it's like you are clearly a bad guy, but you feel you feel thoughtful at the very least about the fact that you killed your father unintentionally. And it's funny too that Gerd always felt that Bane was responsible, and I think saying Bane is responsible is putting it a little strongly, because it's not like he truly, he's what, a 19-year-old kid who's...
Yeah, I think he said he was 18. And so I think that actually gives us a concrete number on how old he is. He's like 23.
Yeah.
23, 24, something like that.
So I'm just very... It's interesting. He's a good character. He's a very good character, I think.
Yep. And that brings us to our last chapter. Chapter 12. It's another 3 weeks later, and Bane's basically like in a funk now.
Yeah.
Now that he's realized, it's like, oh, I murdered my dad, and then I murdered this other student, and it's like, what am I? What has gone on? Existential crisis, basically. And he's kind of regressing in his training. He's been trying to learn some new techniques from Kazim, and not doing well. Just it's all falling apart. And Kazim like sends him off. He's like, hey, come back when you're ready to actually fight. It's like, 'cause right now you're definitely just not in it. It's like you're pulling back from the dark side, and that's the opposite of what we're trying to do here.
Yeah.
So, and Bane's like, I got something's off here.
Something's
Don't know
not
exactly
right.
What's gonna happen with that. And then we go back to Lord Khan, whatever. And he's on his flagship, the Nightfall, in, the Bormia sector, where they've taken over a bunch of planets really recently with very little resistance. And it's kind of starting to worry him, because he's like, feels like it's too easy.
Yeah.
And he's really been anticipating a reprisal from General Hoth of the Jedi, but he's nowhere to be found. So it's eating at him, and Kopex is coming with news from Ruusan, and he felt like he had to deliver the news in person. So Kopex arrives, comes up through the ship, and tells Khan, he's like, hey, Ruusan has fallen, the Jedi came and took over the planet, wiped out all of our forces there, and it's not the Republic, it's just the Jedi. The Army of Light under General Hoth. It was one of those things like, man, seeing this would be insane, wouldn't it?
It would, and also I'm just like, this feels like... It's hard to say this, because I don't want to sound like I'm complaining, because I do think this book is really good, and I think the Army of Light is like just as good of a plot device as anything. It feels antithetical to what we think of as Jedi.
It does, but it's also, like, they say the express purpose of it is to, just fight the Sith. It's like, would that have been, like, is it worse to be, like, Jedis leading other armies, being generals of, like, regular soldiers? Because we saw what happened with the Clone Wars.
That's true. And it's like, it's definitely an interesting moral conversation. I think there's a lot of room for debate there. I think on the whole, you're probably right. This is probably better. I mean, it's clear the Jedi didn't lose their way in the same way as they did during the Clone Wars. And I guess the issue too is that, like, okay, the Jedi are leading other Jedi who all presumably probably have the option to sit out. You know, it's like
Yeah,
unlike the
I'm pretty sure
clones
we,
who
we
don't.
find out later that it's not literally the entire Jedi Order, but Hoth rallied all the troops he could muster, all the ones that would willing to follow him, and formed this army. And he's like,
Right.
hey, come and get a Sith.
Which, and again, too, they're fighting for good, clearly.
Mhm.
So, like, that's not the question. It's just you're going
Yeah,
straight.
it's a very different war.
Yeah.
This is way more, World War II war against the Nazis than, the the Galactic Civil War was a civil war.
Right. Yeah. It's just like this is not just some imperialistic conquest. This is literally like trying to defeat evil,
Mhm.
which again I think, like you said, is a much more noble cause than just like war for war's sake or whatever. And the war's happening anyway. At the end of the
war's
day,
already
yeah, the
going
war
on,
is going
and it's
on.
like the Jedi realizing that they need a different strategy because
Yeah.
what they're doing wasn't working. So, and Khan gets this news, and he's like, "Okay, well, we'll respond in kind. We'll gather up all of our Sith forces from all the different academies and go and meet them in battle, 1-to-1, as it were, because they've been talking about all this whole time. It's like, hey, we're fighting with these ships and armies and stuff, but the soldiers aren't the ones that are going to win the war. It's going to be the Sith."
Yeah.
The Force users. They're the real power. Without them, there's no point to any of it. So we're gonna have a Brotherhood of Darkness versus the Army of Light on Ruusan. That poor planet.
This book is doing so much heavy lifting. Just thinking
Mhm.
about, like all of the things that are connected through this book. Also, Drew Karpyshyn pulling in things that he didn't necessarily create for this
Mhm.
book. So I'm definitely not being too hard on him when it comes to Lord Hoth and his Army of Light, because Lord Hoth has been around since the novel, like the novellas of Dark Forces, that series.
Mhm.
He's been around since then.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I didn't know that's where he came
he's
from.
old. It's not even just the comics that I'm not gonna name because I don't want to spoil anything too much. But like the comics I'm referring to, right? That are pulled in.
Yeah. This is like kind of loosely adapting. At
Yes.
least like broad stroke story
Yes.
stuff from.
Yes. And that of course is in its own way. I don't know. We're gonna get there. Ruusan is a very, very interesting planet to me for a lot of different
Mhm.
reasons, but I don't want to spoil anything quite yet.
Yeah, as we actually we'll spend some time on Ruusan
Yeah.
later, so we'll definitely talk about it more as it comes up.
For sure.
Yep. So back on Korriban, Cordis calls Kazim in to his office to tell him the news about the Army of Light and what the Sith is doing, and he's like, "Yeah, basically all the Sith are going to be gathering up to fight them 1-to-1. Everyone except for the ones from our academy, because they feel like they'll be too much of a hindrance on the battle because there's so much about enhancing their ambition and such at this point in their training that they're not going to be really in a position to work together effectively.
Mm-hmm.
So until they're ready, and I think they mentioned that Sirac's he's probably powerful enough to join, but he's still got too much of a pride problem, even though that's probably a virtue in a Sith, as it were.
And that's what I think is funny is Khan just feels like such a weenie. He does to me. He seems very impotent and very stupid, honestly, because it's like it feels like you are hamstringing the entire Sith order. Like, I understand the logic here, but it is just
It's a quantity over quality, as it were.
Yeah, and if we'll get there, we'll figure it. I'm not gonna talk. I won't talk too much more about that.
Yep. And our last little bit is that they mentioned Sirac, and then Cordis is also like, "What about Bane? He's pretty strong too." And Kazim's like, "Well, you're behind the times. He's these last month or so, he's been in a funk, and he's regressing pretty badly. So, he's definitely not ready for that." And Cordis is like, "All right, well, if that's what he's like, just cut him off. Don't help him anymore. He's gonna sink or swim on his own, basically."
That he is.
And that goes for not just Kazim, it's all the masters. Like, hey, don't give him any special treatment. If he's not willing to rise above it, then he's just gonna drown.
Which is interesting, because it's like, if you scrub out of the Sith Academy, do you just get cut loose, or do they kill you? I'm more inclined to believe they just cut you loose, honestly. I don't.
Yeah, maybe they send you off to one of the Marauder school or something.
Sure,
you know?
yeah.
It's like, hey, you're not cut out for this, but we can still use you somewhere else. Or maybe they just say they until someone manages to kill them.
Yeah.
You know?
I don't know. That's an interesting question. I think so. Anyway, that was a big reading. What are we reading for next time, Cole?
Yep. Let me look it up real quick. So next time it's 13 through 17.
Cool. I'm excited to dive right into this literally in like 20 minutes. This book is like Kirby earlier in chat mentioned that he can't stop himself from reading ahead. And I'm like, well, you're lucky. You're not on this podcast. You can read ahead if you want. I cannot, as we've learned multiple times. I let things slip if I read ahead. So not doing that anymore. But
just restrain yourself.
I did finish Metal Swarm, Saga of Seven Sons book I was reading. And
Nice.
I read a review on Goodreads that summed up how I feel about it perfectly. Which equated to this book, this series does not have the strongest character, the strongest prose, the strongest plot, the strongest anything. And yet I find myself drawn to the story. And I'm just gonna fully praise Kevin J. Anderson on that, because I cannot point out one thing about this book that is great, but to me this series is far better than the sum of its parts. They all come together in a way that's like, yeah, sure, it's a little long, it's a little bloated. There's a lot of like unnecessary recap, but it's pulpy and space opera in a way that's just. It's a popcorn novel, it's like, I'm in, I'm going to finish the stupid series, whether it's good for me or not, I'm going to do it.
It just tastes good.
It does. Books taste good. Cole, where can people find you on the internet for other nuggets of wisdom such as that one?
I'm at Mando Wraith and all different social media stuff, and I'm on Skyhoppers with this guy, talking about whatever Star Wars thing is relevant or not at the time.
Not Andor, if Eva's on it, unfortunately. Not Andor.
Hopefully they can get caught up and we can all talk about it.
Yes, that's the hope. Even if it ends up just being a retrospective of season 1 at some point later on down the line.
Yeah.
That'd be more than fine by me.
And Tales of the Jedi coming out real quick. Just a little over a week.
I'm not ready. There's 2 Star Wars things in one day. Can you imagine?
For notice, some people, what do they call it? Review copies have already gone out for that, like in the last day or so. So I've already seen some tweets about it.
Okay, so that's something to keep in mind, I guess, if you're particularly.
I haven't seen, spoilers going around,
yeah.
But people have got review copies, and I don't think there's a social media embargo on it, so people are already talking about it.
Well, I will also say I really don't know what could be spoiled in those. It doesn't really strike me as a spoilable. That's the word I'm looking for. Spoilable project. Since it's just like vignettes rather than something that's like a narratively cohesive.
Yeah.
But anyway, Cole mentioned the Skyhoppers podcast. We are over there. This is the channel that is happening on. But again, if all goes according to plan, next week we'll be streaming on our own Obroa-skai Walkers channel. And of course, we'll share that out on our Twitter, which is Obroa-skai Pod. You can send us an email, obroaskywalkers@gmail.com. So unless Cole Ninja opened an email, and I didn't know it, we haven't got one in a few weeks. Send one our way. Let us know. Thanks to everyone for hanging out in our stream chat tonight. It's a lot of fun. We try to make it so that, it's worth people's while to hang out in the chat, but also this is first and foremost a podcast. We're not going to let the chat run wild and completely drive the conversation. So don't fear that possibility too much. But yeah, I think that's everything. Join us next week. 8 p.m. Monday, 8 p.m. Eastern time, somewhere thereabouts. Watch our Twitter account. That's where that link will go out. Or just subscribe to. Don't subscribe to Obroa-skai yet, but maybe after next week, once I can be certain that that's where that's going to be happening. But until that point, library patrons, please make your final selections. The library closes in 20 minutes. Hot damn. That is a honker of an episode.
Just under 2 hours.
It's one of those things too where it's like you did like so much of the talking in the second half, but I feel out of breath and like my throat is dry. I'm tired just because of all the Bane. I have so many feelings about Bane.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't know who's left in the chat. Thanks for hanging out though. I'm gonna take the stream down.
Sure.
Yeah, I've got a dip because my brother needs help setting up a monitor. But yeah, same time next week. Not the same place. Hopefully. I'm sure we can get it figured out. See you, everyone.